Although we're in Barcelona, there's no time to relax on the beach, and that's because we're moments away from going racing for the second time this weekend in the Moto2 European Championship. We're set for the incredible 15 laps of show-stopping action on the incredible circuit of Barcelona-Catalunya. A phenomenal venue which opened back in 1991, eventually stamping its place as the home for Formula 1, World Superbike, and of course MotoGP. Now we head into a pivotal race in the championship fight where Unai Radri looks to complete a delightful double and potentially wrap up the championship. It's now time to go elbows out in Moto2 Race 2. Earlier on today, we had race 1 for the Moto2 class with a great start for Eric Fernandez. He led the way in the opening lap from Alberto Ferrandis on the number 54. Milan Pavelich got himself into the podium places straight away, keeping the tabs on the front two runners as your championship leader Unai Radri carved his way and worked his way up the order. It was an uneventful start for him, but it wouldn't take long before he made his presence known. Xabi Zuratuza eventually got his elbows out though in the opening couple laps. He would drop back later on as Jerry Ruiz served a long lap penalty following the incident on Saturday. Eric Fernandez continued to lead the charge through as now Radri entered the podium places yet again, pushing Xabi Zuratuza back down to P4. Soon Zuratuza's attention turned to Milan Pavelich because his pace looked incredibly strong, able to match the front runners throughout the entire race. Some incredible moves were pulled, including this one here, where Radri able to put himself back into P1. Eric Fernandez and Alberto Ferrandis were forced to fight away as there was a retirement from the 97 of Kim. That brought an end to their hopes. Gimbert as well battling away with the likes of Alberto Sura. Soon though that changed round as Xavi Artigas was the rider in hot pursuit. Alberto Ferrandis launching the move though down the inside at turn 10, making it work, making it stick, as we did have this crash from Dutch rider Owen van Tricht. He showed his frustration to the tyre barrier, and that was all she wrote for race 1. Luckily walked away from the incident as Eric Fernandez sent the move down the inside at turn 5, making it work, making it stick. A little bit of movement on the rear though, showing how hard they're pushing each other out on track. It was a race full of moves. It was a race that went down to the final corner for second position. It was Unai Radri who took victory as Eric Fernandez was able to pick second place. Radri enters race 2 with a chance to take the title. And what drama we have in store this afternoon. Well, here we are. It's still nice and sunny this afternoon, something that wasn't originally forecasted at the start of the week. But nonetheless, we're not complaining, and that's because a championship is on the line. The Moto2 European Championship can be decided here today in Barcelona. It's round 6 of the FIM JuniorGP World Championship season. My name's Lewis Ray. Alongside me for this weekend is Jack Amy. And well, Jack, what a ride we've seen in race 1 from Unai Radri. And now he's done all the hard work to put himself into this position to have match point here in race 2.
It wasn't a race from someone who looked under pressure to win the title this weekend in race 1 for Radri. And yeah, the results of this morning's race mean he needs to outscore Alberto Ferrandis and Alberto Sura by 3 points and Milan Pavelich by 1 to secure the title with a round to spare. Obviously, if he wins the race like he did this morning, he wins the title.
Yeah, exactly. It would claim an extra 5 points, even if his closest rival finished in second, if he was to win here today. But nonetheless, the grid has already formed, and now the riders will be rearing to go. Of course, the number 4, quick check on his smartphone actually before he gets going, just making sure perhaps everything is good. And the final couple of messages to perhaps some loved ones. But Eric Fernandez starting on pole position. He wasn't able to convert that into victory, but he was so close of course, the final corner move that we've seen.
He was very close to victory this morning, just missing out by really not much across the 15-lap race. With a few refinements in the gap that we've had, he'll hope that he can this time take that victory.
Yeah, of course. Eric Fernandez going from P1, and well, an impressive front row for company to say the very least. Xavi 02's up, an impressive qualifying position for him. He starts, of course, on the front row yet again. Second place for him. 1 pole so far this year, proving that over 1 lap, he's able to be super, super quick. Over the race, he's able to be super quick as well. But in the latter half of race 1, we did see him drop towards the likes of Alberto Sura and, of course, Artigas.
Yeah, it wasn't perhaps the race at 02s I would have expected, because we know he has incredible race pace. We've seen that this season. But in the second half of race 1, did drop back. Wasn't in the. It was effectively a 4-rider group that went for victory to start with, and then 02s dropped back from that.
Yeah, and of course, Alberto Fernandez, he was the rider that was involved in that 4-rider group all the way to the last lap. He got pipped at the final corner, dropped back down to 3rd. He looked very disappointed after that one, but nonetheless, it was still a solid result. But it's got to sting when the likes of Unai Radri, who will be starting right here from P4 at the head of the second row, is able to beat you and yet again extend his margin further.
It will be disheartening, but we know Radri has all season been incredibly consistent with race pace, with results. Everything about this has been a proper title tank in terms of making sure that on a bad day, you don't have a terrible result. You maximise what you can still. And that's why he's in this position to wrap it up with a race to spare. Yeah,
exactly. And then, well, they'll still have the final race, as you mentioned, at Valencia. And Milan Pavelich starts from P5. Now, he was one of the riders that eventually found their form in that group. He was able to keep tabs on them all the way throughout, perhaps not able to make the moves like we've seen from the likes of Eric Fernandez in that group, but Milan Pavelich able to keep tabs on the front riders.
Able to keep tabs. He was very close to them. As you say, maybe lacking that 1/10th and a half to be able to make a move stick heading into, for example, turn 1, turn 10, to get in the podium fight completely. But he was close. And again, a few refinements between races, he'll be very much up there.
Alberto Sura as well, second row start for him. And perhaps he would have been hoping for a little bit more heading into this weekend, because he's going to have to find a few tenths if he wants to get himself in that podium fight.
Perhaps race 1 was a bit of a disappointment for the number 67. We normally expect Sura to make very quick gains throughout the race and maintain them throughout. He had no pace to go with the top 4 at all. He was very much in the second group all throughout the race.
Now, we said it in race 1, and we'll say it again in race 2. Alessandro Morozio, a great qualifying yet again for himself, really coming to form here in the Moto2 European Championship. But let's not forget the competition, shall we say, that he has on that third row of the grid with the likes of Artigas and Oscar Gutierrez, 2 incredible riders in their own right in different championships.
It's a very stacked third row of the grid with Morossi, Artigas and Gutierrez.
Well, here is Xavi Artigas. Kisses to the camera, but he's looking focused for this one, I think it's fair to say. Of course, got involved in that incident at Mazzano, but it certainly didn't seem to affect his start at all in race 1. He was able to put the hammer down from lap 1, and he was able to make some moves as well on the likes of Alberto Sura. He was able to really get his elbows out, was Artigas.
He was able to get his elbows out. He'll hope to move forward and be in that lead group if possible, but still a solid effort in race 1.
So your starting grid, a potential championship decider. Eric Fernandez starts this one though from pole. Xavi Zurutuza and Alberto Fernandez goes from the front row, with your championship leader Unai Radri starting from P4. Can he convert this one into championship victory? Milan Pavelich, Alberto Sura starts from row 2, with Morozio, Artigas and Gutierrez on row 3. Drawing Gimbert, Manjardo and Jimenez starting from the top 12. Kursavan, Ruiz and Harrison Voigt rounding out our top 15, with Udena, Lorenzo Furlong and Mario Mayor starting from row 6. Josh Watley, Christian Lawley and Ramos starting from the top 21, as Rossi Moore, Ruda and Palmer start from row 8. Van Tricht, we've seen him have a crash earlier on today. He goes from P25, with Alcobaese and Eisenkopf starting from row 9. And of course, Kim rounds out our grid after the retirement we've seen earlier on in race 1. Now though, all talking stops, and we head out on our warm-up lap to go racing for the final time in the Moto2 European Championship weekend. Of course, still one more race coming up this year for the class in Valencia in just a few weeks' time. However, heading into this race, there is a chance where a championship could be decided, and that is Johan Gimbert. Now, I did see a rider potentially raising their hand leaving the warm-up lap, so hopefully no big issues for the number 7.
Hopefully not. He had a very strong race earlier on. He was fighting comfortably in the top 10 for most of it. Just obviously didn't go with the front group or the second group as much as he would have liked, so hopefully no issues there.
Yeah, let's hope we'll see him take the start to this one. But Alberto Sura really getting a shift on throughout this warm-up lap, really trying to get temperature into those tyres, into those brakes, and just get going. He looked ready to go, always in the grid, helmet down, visor practically down, and a quick handshake to his team, and that was it. Sura means business in this one. He knows that he needs to go out and do the business.
Sura's first objective is to obviously beat Aradre for the title. He would like to, obviously, to claim victory, and that is the the most obvious way to beat Aradre. But yeah, he looked very focused. We saw it this morning on the warm-up lap as well. He bolted very quickly. Just a quick look at the championship standings, just to give you the overview. Aradre, 23 points clear off Fernandez and Sura. He needs to be 26 clear with 25 available due to countback, because there's a possibility that riders end up on 4 wins each. So 26 is the magic point for Aradre in this race.
Yeah, of course, and well, the easiest option for Aradre on paper would be just to go out and win it, grab those extra 5 points, grab another win to his name as well. So count back, even if the points weren't a thing, wouldn't even be an issue. But that's easier said than done. He had to work hard for it in race 1, and well, it looks like he'll have to work even harder for it in race 2.
He'll have to work hard for it in race 2, but he'll have confidence knowing that he can go from P4 on the grid, fight for victory, effectively controlled the race for the most part. As soon as he hit the front, no one really challenged him.
Yeah, nobody really was able to get back ahead of him once he was in that P1 slot. Of course, on the opening lap or two, he did play it relatively safe. He didn't get himself necessarily involved in any silly moves, any silly battles, and then he slowly chipped himself away back from around P4, where he started from, all the way up into the lead. So, Eric Fernandez is your rider on pole position. The number 4 starts from P1. But all eyes are on what's going to happen in the championship fight here in Barcelona. Will it be decided today, or will it roll on to Valencia? We don't have to wait long to find out. 15 laps of action is now go. A great start from Eric Fernandez. He claims the whole shot on the run to turn 1. Another good start as well from Alberto Fernandez from 3rd position. As well, potentially getting swallowed by the pack in the run to turn 1 could be Xabi Zuratuza. He lost a little bit of ground. That is going to be Milan Pavelec also through, as is Unai Aradre. So Unai Aradre back into P4, although round the outside, now on the inside, is Xabi Zuratuza. So using turn 2, turn 3, the flip-flop to his advantage.
Aradre got a bit of wheelie off the line, which slowed him down, looking at the run into turn 1 in P5, but obviously he hasn't lost much ground to the right head. Would have liked to have kept Zuratuza behind, I suspect, through turns 1 and 2, but currently P5. There was someone just standing up through turn 4 there. Looks like everyone's got through okay though, and Aradre knows that he needs to get past Zuratuza very quickly.
Alberto Sura now trying to get his elbows out on this opening couple of laps. He was down to P10 after the first couple of corners. Currently Sura runs in 9th. Johan Gimbert has taken the start to this one, so luckily no issues for him, or at least no lasting issues out on these opening couple of laps. Batting away, Francesco Mangiardo as well. We've seen him crash out at Mazan, running on the green actually. I think that was more not to make contact more than anything else, as Milan Pavelec looks down the inside at turn 10, and free goes on Eric Fernandez as Alberto Fernandez leads the way.
Yeah, Alberto Fernandez leading the way. Pavelec up to 2nd place. Aradre still in 5th behind Zuratuza. Maybe he'll wait for turn 1, make it a less risky move under braking at one of the heaviest braking zones on the track.
Milan Pavelec up in 2nd place. It's something we didn't necessarily see in race 1. Now's his time to shine. Now's his time to attack. When we spoke to him yesterday, just before he went out for qualifying, he did say all eyes were on his tyres, all eyes were on tyre conservation, and now, well, in this open lap, it certainly seems like he is pushing on, but this is how you get into the positions later on in the race. It's how you get yourself into those prime spots, as everyone nice and clean into turn 1.
Everyone nice and clean indeed. Yeah, as you mentioned with tyres, it's Barcelona is a very tricky circuit because you can push hard in the beginning, lose ground at the end because you have pushed that much harder, or you can be a bit more consistent, which is what we saw Pavlets do in race 1, but not to this effect. He wasn't able to make it up at the end. So perhaps he's learned from that, just going to push a little bit more in the early stages of this race.
Yeah, gets himself in a good spot at the moment. Second place is not a bad position to be in with 14 laps remaining. Xavi Artigas now up the inside. He goes on Unai Aradri. Aradri tries to stick around the outside, but you eventually do have to just show defeat, show the white flag, and then just peel in behind and follow behind us. Alberto Sura could potentially get into the mix in a few corners' time. He's just a few positions back, and certainly the 67. He will do everything he can to push the number 10 back.
He will indeed. Number 67 very close, just as you say, 2 places behind the number 10 as they head into turn 10. Not the race we expected from Aradre, I would say, in the early stages. Obviously, 14 laps still, 13 and a bit laps to go. Plenty of time for the number 10 to recover.
Now, though, potentially just playing it nice and safe, and then with around 10 laps to go, hopefully we can see the number 10 start to get to work again, because when he's in form, when he's in his groove, it's such a special thing to watch. Very rare do we see him actually make a mistake. Once he hit the front in race 1, I don't think we've seen any major errors from him at all.
No, not at all. It was just very calm, very collected, but enough that he wasn't able to be challenged, even though he had 2 or 3 riders right behind him at all times. Just seeing on the run into turn 1, it looks like the front 4 have tried to break away. Artigas in 5th, just losing ground to Zurutuza, but it's still Fernandez leading ahead of Pavlets.
Stays as was for the top 2 at the moment in the run-in. Eric Fernandez sits in 3rd. Oscar Gutierrez does claim the fastest lap of the race. Of course, we came over the line for the first of our flying laps, and as usual, the fastest lap was traded about like a game of pass the parcel. Now, Unai Aradri, P6 as things stand. Not necessarily in a bad position. He's got a couple of experienced riders ahead of him, but if he slips 1 or 2 more places back, he's going to begin to race with people that perhaps he's not used to fighting with out on circuit.
He is, yeah. Ideally for Aradri now, you would expect him to start closing the gap to Artigas, to Zurutuza, start making those places back, because this is not what he would have envisioned on the grid either. He would have hoped to repeat what he did in race 1. Stay with that lead group, stay in the top 3 or 4, and slowly make your way forward. At the moment, that's not happened.
You can see how hard they're having to push on the way to turn 9. Slightly on the green as well for a couple of the riders yet again. It's so easy to do on the exit. You're just trying to pick up the bike, get on the throttle as hard as you can, all the way to the curb, extending it to the edge of the curbs. As we head into the final sector yet again, ticking off another lap of action. A great sector 1 from Alberto Fernandez, a great sector 3 from Alberto Fernandez. And well, you would suggest perhaps our fastest lap of the race is inbound. Over the line last time around, around 0.2 of a second, give or take. As now we head over, breaking the beam now, and we wait for the timing screens to update. It's going to be the new fastest lap of the race, a 1:43.9. But that gap has actually came down in the process, and that's thanks to Slipstream, and that's thanks to Milan Pavlets being so strong. As he does run wide, however, that's going to allow Eric Fernandez through. So Eric Fernandez up into 2nd, and Pavlets down to 3rd.
Pavlets running wide through turn 1, trying to outbrake Fernandez, into turn 1, and just running slightly wide, which didn't allow Fernandez back through. But we've seen Pavlets does clearly have the pace to go through and fight for this victory.
Yeah, fighting away at the head of this group. Still no moves for the number 10, Unai Aradri. As things stand in the championship, we go to the final round with 8 points in the way of things for Unai Aradri. So just an 8-point hold he would have if the checker flag came out now. However, there's still 11.5 laps remaining, so you would expect that to change ever so slightly as this race does go on. But judging by the face that we've seen in Parc Fermé on the podium from Alberto Fernandez, he meant business. He knows that this race means everything, and you have to suggest it is going to be winner or bin it stuff if it comes down to some final lap battles between himself and other championship contenders.
It does look like that at the moment. I think we could see in Parc Fermé he wasn't particularly happy with how race 1 played out, and from that moment he became a rider on a mission. He wants to go out of Barcelona with a victory under huge pressure from Eric Fernandez through the penultimate corner though, and obviously Fernandez will have a slipstream down into turn 1. Aradre, it looks like he's becoming a bit detached from this group ahead of him as well.
Yeah, he is, and if he drops any further back, he's soon going to go all the way back down to around P9 or 10. That's how close this group is. Looking at the inside, perhaps in just a moment's time, though, could be the likes of Alberto Sura. At turn 1 we go now, hard on the anchors, and actually it's going to be Alberto Sura losing out this time around. So, what a race we're having so far. We can see the rest of the field making their way through nice and clean. As we see the Yamaha team running their way through towards turn 3. Almost off the circuit there, off circuit briefly was Alberto Ferrandis, but nonetheless he does hold on to position at turn 4 and makes her way towards turn 5 again. But it does look like Eric Fernandez is building towards a move here with 11 laps remaining.
It does, yeah, although he's having to defend from Pavlets just into turn 5, led the Polish rider having a look at his rival but not making a mistake, and that's allowed a bit of a gap to form between Fernandez and Pavlet. But yeah, it looks like Fernandez is just trying to get as close as he can to Fernandez, make a move perhaps into turn 10, but more likely you would think turn 1 if he can keep closing that gap.
Yeah, it's just about chipping away, finding that we are faster than your rival, and then putting that to use, most importantly. Now, Unai Radre, he has certainly lost touch of this lead group, has separated himself and Artigas at the line last time around. It's a couple of attempts, so still a couple of attempts to try and make up, and that's very, very simple to do on some occasions, but not in the Moto2 European Championship. But everything's as close. Everyone, of course, has the same engines inside the machines. All have the 765 Triumph engine, and then a handful of chassis. Majority of riders opting for the Calyx, but in the likes of Radre's case, opting for the Bosca-Skura, which has become more and more popular over the last couple of years.
It has indeed, yeah, the Bosca-Skura chassis becoming more popular. On the run into turn 1, Fernandez defending Pavlets up the inside of Fernandez for P2 under braking, and now the number 44 will chase down the number 54 at the head of the field.
Milan Pavlets has repaid the favour over at turn 1, and he's made that one stick this time around. He slots in just behind the 54 of Alberto Ferrandis, and then looking at the last laps between your race leader and Unai Radre, around a tenth of a half slower, so still a lot of ground to do, but in the grand scheme of things, we're seeing he's not too much off the pace compared to your race leaders. It's just the position that he's in, being 6th position, and now a place that he has to make up. He has to bridge a gap and make some ground up.
He has to bridge the gap, make the ground up, make the pass as well. That can result in using a lot more tyre than you would expect at this stage of the race. Aradre still has the pace to fight for the podium. We know that in the latter stages he will probably have a slight advantage because it's the way he goes about his business. But in terms of the championship, it looks like it's probably not going to happen here at this stage.
Yeah, we're going to need some miracle for Unai Radre, although, of course, tyre life, a massive talking point this weekend. Perhaps it could start swinging his way in the latter half of the race, but nonetheless, we're going to have an incredible fight for this podium, if nothing else. Alberto Ferrandis over the line. He's going to come in just one corner's time. We'll wait for them to come out of the final corner, with Milan Pavlets just behind. Into the slipstream, tucked in he goes, and looking for another opportunity at turn 1. On the defensive, though, is your race leader now. Milan Pavlets trying to look for a move. Have a little scare, actually, I think, there, when the 54 was coming over to the conventional racing line. So a 4-rider group at the front of things. Xavi Artigas just about a bike length or 2 separating himself and Xavi Zuratuza. So if Artigas can bridge that gap, then it's soon going to be a 5-rider group in contention for the win.
Importantly, Artigas is not dragging Aradre along with him. So Aradre is becoming a bit more detached from Artigas in terms of the championship fight. At the head of the field, Fernandez 2 tenths clear as it stands at the moment ahead of Pavlets, but the number 44 is not going to give this one up.
Let's not forget as well, we've not seen too many moves just made yet. They've all stuck pretty much in line in terms of this lead group, and that just means that in the latter half of the race, when you do start scrapping, when you do start releasing the brake, trying to make a few moves, invent some few moves, then that's going to allow this group behind, the likes of Aradre, Sura, all to come back into the mix.
It is, yeah, and obviously when you start battling, you start costing yourself time. It drags other people who aren't battling into that fight. Although on this lap, it looks like Fernandez and Pavlets have pulled out a slight gap over Fernandez behind around 4 tenths at the moment. That could get swallowed up on the run into turn 1, or a lot of it anyway, so he's not out of contention yet, but it looks like the top 2 are trying to break away.
Some great moves made at turn 10. Oscar Gutierrez getting ahead of Monjardo. And then, of course, further back, we do have Ruiz just ahead of Gimbert. So, towards the line we go to make it 8 laps remaining. Alberto Fernandez, fan club for himself in this one. Towards turn 1 we go yet again, and heavy on the anchors goes Milan Pavlets. He thinks better of it though. He did have a brief look. Now, third position, a change there. Xavi Zuratuza is in third. What sort of work can he do there? Eric Fernandez has dropped back ever so slightly. A great sector 1 actually, no surprise, for Xavi Zuratuza, an 18.004, around a tenth or 2 quicker than the 2 riders ahead.
Zuratuza looking like he's found something from this morning's race as he fights for the podium, and Fernandez looks like he hasn't got the pace he had this morning to go with the top 2 at the moment. As I said earlier, Fernandez and Pavlets just edging away slightly. They're now half a second or so clear of Zuratuza in P3.
Yeah, half a second clear as things stand, but what will it end later on in the race? Unai Aradri seems to be pretty strong through the first sector or so. He does make up a little bit of ground every single lap, but it's later on in the race that he seemed to lose it. Now, here is the rider we're talking about. Here is the championship leader on your screen, but we go towards turn 10 yet again. Eric Fernandez and Xavi Zuratuza side by side. Also Milan Pavlets having a little move. Now, your live championship standings, 8 points would be the gap if the checker flag came out right now. However, it doesn't seem like that will finish the case. We're going to wait and see what unfolds over the next 7 or so laps, because I don't think the last throw of the dice is done just yet. I think Unai Aradri is going to be pushing on these final 7 laps or so, and hopefully for him, he's going to have a little bit of tyre left to start bridging some ground.
You would think at this point, given what we've seen in the first half of this race, that that would be his strategy. He isn't too far away, if that is. He's 1.7 behind Fernandez at the head of the field. Is there a move into turn 1? Not this time. So yeah, Aradri 1.7 seconds behind the lead. So if that is his strategy, it could still work. But he can't afford to lose too much time. And looking at the lap times, they were all very similar on the last lap.
One thing's for sure, the battle for third certainly isn't done between Eric Fernandez and Xavi Zuratuza. Zuratuza running slightly wide at turn 1, managing though to hold on to third place as well. Look at the pressure that Alberto Sura is putting on Unai Aradri. Alberto still not able to make the moves himself, similar to what we've seen in race 1 from him, but nonetheless, the 6-7 is slowly beginning to look more and more aggressive as this race goes on.
He is. We're just seeing a replay heading into turn 1. The braking comparison between Aradri getting a bit sideways under braking for the heavy braking zone. And we're just seeing a long lap penalty for number 49, Monjardo. That's for shortcutting turns 1, 2, and 3, and that'll be without losing sufficient time as well.
Yeah, so a long lap penalty to serve there for the 49, but nonetheless the battle will continue at the head of the field. We were able to see Aradri into turn 1, a little bit out of shape as we said, but nonetheless it just goes to show how hard they have to push. There's confirmation of that long lap penalty. Came up on our timing screens. 1 second though being the gap between Xavi Artigas and Unai Aradri. It's just over that 1 second margin, and whenever you get into seconds instead of tenths, it's a whole different blow mentally, and not to mention the fact you'll cross the line, and like Fernandez, Unai Aradri's pit board is going to be saying +0.
It is indeed, and actually you mentioned that he's still all over the back, still fairly close to Artigas, but the gap to the leader, which is where Aradri would need to be to make sure of the title by outscoring his rivals, is increasing. It's now 2 seconds. It was 1.7. So it looks like maybe Aradri doesn't have the pace this afternoon to fight for that podium.
And of course, the easiest thing to do in this situation as a rider is you just begin to get maybe a little bit stressed, maybe a little bit anxious, or perhaps frustrated that you're not running at where you were running in race 1. Then you start pushing a little bit harder, and then you can soon get into a situation where you're overriding the bike, and then you're actually losing time instead of gaining time. Defensive though into turn 5.
Very defensive against Alberto Sura, who looks like he's a bit, I mean, there were hundreds between their last lap times, so they're very, very similar on pace. Of course, Sura could feel like he's being held up by Aradri. One thing from Aradri, from his World Supersport 300 days, all throughout his career, he's very cool, very calm, very collected. So I don't think the pressure will be telling on him, but at the way this race is going is not how he would have imagined it.
Yeah, certainly not, as Milan Pavlec now looks up the inside yet again. He's got closer and closer every single lap, and he's looked for a few moves, but he's yet to be able to make one work on the leader. Sure, he was able to get past Eric Fernandez, but now he's got to try and find the move on Alberto Ferrandez. We've seen in race 1, it did take some time between second and third, albeit Milan Pavlec was just able to watch, but it was still a little bit of time to gather that extra data on exactly how your rivals are going to battle and how Alberto Ferrandez is going to battle while he's fighting for the lead.
It's a good place to be in P2, very close to Fernandez out in front. Is he just going to look under brake? No, too far back this time at turn 1, but he'll be learning all the time. Where is Fernandez stronger than him? Where is he weaker? Where can he make the move? He'll be picturing what he wants to happen in his head at the moment over the next 5 laps.
Just over 1/10 of a second separated them at the line. Oradri now has seemed to stretch the gap over Alberto Sura, so perhaps a mistake from Sura. There's certainly a couple of bike lengths in them. Well, last time around we came towards turn 5 and it was Oradri that had to take the tightest line possible to stop the 67 from showing the front wheel. Now, however, a much more comfortable position and a little bit less pressure off his back.
Very much so, a little bit less pressure off Oradri. However, it's still not how he would have pictured it. He's now 2.4 behind the race win, 1.4 behind Artigas out in front. So potentially P6 the best the number 10 is going to do.
Of course, mistakes, errors can still happen within the top 5 runners. It's still around the 5-rider group, although the likes of Pavlec and Eric Fernandez, there's a couple bike lengths between the two of them out on circuit in second and third. But all it takes is a couple of moves to be made for the lead position, and suddenly everyone's back into play. Still, Alberto Ferrandez holds the fastest lap of the race, a 1:43.905, as they head towards the final sector yet again. Heads towards a tricky turn 14, where we've seen some moves being made earlier on today, and then down towards the start-finish straight. Across the line we go, and then 4 laps now remain. Another lap ticked off in Moto2 European Race 2.
Four laps to go. Is Pavlec on the outside? Is he going to be able to make that stick? No, actually, he loses out. Eric Fernandez fighting back to take P2 away from the number 44 at turn 1.
So Pavlec now down in 3rd position, and Eric Fernandez on the attack. Through turn 3 we go. The rear tyres will be screaming in anger. The bikes will be bouncing off the rev limiter as we come towards turn 4 now. Onto the brakes. And number 4 lurking, awaiting for any sort of move. And well, Pavlec, he is going to have to attack pretty soon if he wants to hold on to this, because we could soon get into a situation where it's then Zuratuza that's overtaken Pavlec, since we have a replay of this move at turn 1. Into the braking zone we go. Well, you can just see perhaps I'm squeezing the brake a little bit more than what he would have wanted, because suddenly there was Eric right in his way.
Absolutely right in his way. Just to note from the last lap times, Eric Fernandez did a 1:44.1. Fernandez did a 1:44.7. So Fernandez right now is the quickest rider in this lead group. As we see Pavlec fighting back though at turn 10, taking P2 back away from Fernandez, but number 4 holds a tighter line into turn 11 and defends position into turn 12. So as you were, despite Pavlec making a very ambitious move.
Yeah, Pavlec, what a great race he's having. Really getting his teeth stuck into things, of course. Started racing all those years ago, back on pit bike racing, and now, of course, in Moto2. And what a fine job he's done. We do have some yellow flags out over at turn 10, so hopefully everyone's okay there. But nonetheless, you can just see how much it means to the teams on pit wall. Back to turn 1 we go yet again. Will it be Milan Pavlec's turn at the front of things? He looks to enter 2nd place. Mario Mayor has crashed out. That'll be over at turn 10. He does walk away from the scene of the drama. As well, positions continue to change. It is Pavlec in 2nd position as we come through towards turn 4. The 44 is now on the attack. He knows it's now or never, with the penultimate lap looming here in Barcelona.
Exactly, it's exactly what Pavlec would have wanted to do. Fernandez, though, is not letting him get away or challenge Fernandez without putting pressure on himself. Turn 5, all of them sideways under the heavy braking, but coming out as you were from the left-hand corner.
Yeah, through the kink we go now towards turn 7. Very tricky to make a move here at the best of times, never mind in the Moto2 class. Of course, bigger machines and slightly different riding style to them. Mario Mayor has retired, so that will be a full retirement for him as yellow flags now out over at turn 5, one of the trickiest corners that we do have here. Potentially Kursavan as he drops down the order in the number 64 machine, and Milan Pavlec dives down the inside. Can he hold on to the side by side all the way through turn 10? That's confirmation of Kursavan's crash at turn 5. But what great racing we just seen there from Ferrandis and Milan Pavlec, and now Pavlec soon has to get involved with Eric Fernandez. These front three are going to town over the next 2 laps.
This is going to be an incredible final couple of laps here in Moto2. Fernandez leading Pavlec at the moment, but at the free rider fight, they have dropped Zurutuza out of contention. And on the run down to turn 1, we'll see who is able to take advantage. Under braking, Pavlec up the inside, moving into P2, into P1, double move from the number 44 as he moves into the lead of the race.
Into P1 goes Milan Pavlec. How long can he hold on to it? He leans onto the side of Ferrandis. Heading through turn 3 now. The rear tyres will be screaming for any sort of grip that they have to give. It's been such a high intensity to this race. The lap times have been incredible, and now we head for turn 4 towards turn 5. They're gonna have to be careful for here because a move could potentially be made. Eric Fernandez on the wrong side of the bike, and Alberto Sura right on the back of Unai Aradri. Aradri could potentially drop to 7th with 1.5 laps remaining.
Alberto Sura has made up the time he appeared to lose to Aradri and putting the number 10 under huge pressure once again. The number 44 continues to lead though. Artigas looked like he was all over the back of Zurutuza heading into turn 9. Just a 10th or so separating those two.
Heading out of turn 9, now down towards turn 10. Heavy on the brakes yet again. And this has been the biggest lead we have seen from Pavlec at the head of the race. Live championship standings. Pavlec would be put in 2nd position in the championship standings if it was to finish as was. The title, of course, would go down to the final race of the year in Valencia. It's exactly what everyone, at least from our perspective, has been hoping for. A grand finale in Moto2.
Everyone but Unai Aradri would have been hoping for that. Aradri obviously would have been going out to get it sorted today. And actually, as it stands, it will be 4 riders heading to Valencia who have a mathematical chance of taking the title. Sura, 24 points back, would struggle, of course, as Fernandez defends P2 from Fernandez. But Pavlec has pulled out almost half a second over the 2 behind him. The number 44 looks like he's timed his moves to perfection.
Pavlec's a little bit wide there through turn 1, but luckily by the time we got to turn 2, he didn't lose too much ground. Eric Fernandez, though, does look up the inside towards turn 4. Can he make a move work? No, he cannot. As well, Alberto Ferrandis, he is in the way. Towards turn 5 we go yet again. You would imagine it'd be a slightly defensive line or not, because, well, Eric Fernandez too far back yet again.
He was too far back. I think everyone was bracing for a move at turn 5 there, but not quite for Fernandez. It won't happen at turn 7, far too far back to make that turn 10 a possibility, but it looks like Fernandez just has enough to potentially defend that, and then it will come down to the final corner.
Yeah, it's all going to come down to the final corner yet again. 2nd place, of course, was decided at the last corner in race 1. A little look behind from Milan Pavlec, just checking the gap, just checking the margin, how defensive he has to go into turn 10. Just a few more corners left in this Moto2 European Championship race. Well, Milan Pavlec, what a ride it has been. 3 more corners left, separates himself from victory here in Barcelona. Still 1 more race coming up this year in the class, and well, the championship, it's going down to the wire. A final corner move yet again from Eric Fernandez, pushes Alberto Ferrandis back to 3rd. It's a carbon copy from race 1 as Milan Pavlec wins race 2. 2nd place goes the way of your pole sitter, the number 4 of Eric Fernandez. Alberto Ferrandis in 3rd, Xavi Zurutuza in P4, Xavi Artigas in P5, as Unai Aradri does hold off Alberto Sura for 6th. Joan Gimbert, of course, taken P8. Another solid result from himself, as also Gutierrez and Jimenez rounds out the top 10. Second place in the championship now for Milan Pavelich. What a ride it was. So deserved. This means so much to him. You can just see. Of course, the number 44 will head to the P1 spot in Parc Fermé. It perhaps wasn't the result that Unai Radri hoped for, neither the result that Alberto Ferrandez would have hoped for. He wasn't too pleased after race 1, after being pipped at the final corner. And now, well, he's been pipped at the final corner again. I think the marshals just trying to get a few of the riders to stop to celebrate with. But no stoppers this time around for them. But Eric Fernandez, P6 in the standings, of course, for himself. And he does continue to make his mark in this championship. A burnout for all the fans watching in the grandstand at turn 10. As he makes his way now back to Parc Fermé. Second place for him. I'm sure he would have been craving a race win. Alberto Ferrandez just about to enter pit lane now. Of course, pit lane just before turn 14. And then straight to Parc Fermé, he'll go. His whole team, of course, will be waiting. And this time he's the sole team Chati Bososcuro in Parc Fermé. Unai Radri, P6. It was a match point heading into this one, but now, of course, it's going down to the final race of the year. 23 points advantage he had going into race 2. Now, his closest rival, Milan Pavelich. The Polish rider that sits just 10 points behind in the standings. Took his first win of the season at Aragon. And it's been a real consistent year. He sat P3 in the championship heading into this weekend. And now, well, that second place has been enough to secure him P2 as things stand. Still a lot to work to do in Valencia, but that's a few weeks' time. And that's a future problem. Right now, it's time for them to celebrate. There is a Radri. He'll head back to the pit box. He's already had to ride past Parc Fermé, something that I'm sure he wasn't hoping to do. I'm sure the championship shirts would have been in the back of the box, in the back of the truck, heading away, but it will have to wait till at least Valencia. Pavelich though, and the AGR team now celebrate. Milan Pavelich said that he had the pace to claim top 3 in qualifying. For him, it was a second row start after Q2. But certainly in the race, he's been able to make that work. Of course, we'll be able to hear from Milan Pavelich and Parc Fermé very, very soon. But first, the small matter of celebrating with his team. The people that have made all of this possible. And the people that have allowed him to take second in the championship ahead of the final round of the season. Who knows, it could still be gold. A gold medal round his neck at the end of the year. A quick drink though down in Parc Fermé, and that's for Eric Fernandez. He had to work hard yet again for a second place, deciding it at the final corner. He really doesn't make his job easy. But nonetheless, I'm sure he's feeling pretty incredible after yet another final lap pass. Alberto Ferrandez, however, dejected, I think it's fair to say. Now P3 in the championship, 142 points to his name. And debrief in Parc Fermé with his team about what they needed to do, what the issue was, and the struggles that he had throughout the race. Perhaps feeling on the front, just wasn't what you'd hoped. As the pictures, selfies, and the social media post will begin yet again. You can see some gestures, definitely some sliding going on that Alberto was hoping wasn't there. But nonetheless, we can speak to our race winner with Milan Pavlic down in Park Fermi. He'll be speaking to Jack, but first we'll have a quick look back at the race-winning overtake. He made the move down at turn 1, able to get through on Alberto Ferrandis. As now he took the win, and Milan now can speak to Jack in Park Fermi.
Milan Pavlic, what a win that was here, race 2 at Barcelona. Just talk us through it from your point of view.
Yeah, it was something amazing. My second win in this championship. I'm a rookie here, so this is something incredible what I did here. I'm very happy. We take a very good information from the first race, because first race wasn't very good for us. It's 4th place, but we want also we want more, and that's how we make now in the second race. I don't know what to say. I want just to celebrate this with my friends, with my girlfriend, with my parents, everything who came here to support me. And thank you so much, AGR, for this support and everything. What you do for me. Thank you.
And just in Polish for your fans back home.
Nie mogę tego opisać, co się wydarzyło. Bardzo dobrze wyciągnięte wnioski po pierwszym wyścigu. Bardzo się cieszę. Nie, brakuje mi tchu. W ostatnich kółkach rozegrałem wszystko. Jestem tutaj z całą moją rodziną, ze wszystkimi przyjaciółmi. Przyjechali tutaj mi kibicować. Najbliższa runda tutaj z mojego teamu, bo tu w Barcelonie mój team pochodzi. Także nic bardziej nie mogę oczekiwać. Jest świetnie. Idę celebrować dalej z moimi wszystkimi przyjaciółmi, którzy tu przyjechali, i cieszyć się tym zwycięstwem. Dziękuję bardzo. Wszystkim sponsorom również, którzy wierzyli we mnie i cały czas wierzą, że dojdziemy do Mistrzostw Świata. Dziękuję.
Milan, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Milan Pavlic has elevated himself to second position in the championship, and this is how he did it. The race got underway with Eric Fernandez stealing the lead in the opening stages. However, Alberto Ferrandis soon got to work, placed in the 54 machine in P1. Xabi Zurutuza was close to the action as Unai Aradri soon fell to P5. Things would go from bad to worse for the number 10, losing further ground and dropping back down to P6. Alberto Sura would also begin his charge. He would follow Unai Aradri throughout the entire race, unable to find a way through, unable to find a chunk in the number 10's armour. Pavlic ran wide slightly at turn 1, allowing Eric Fernandez briefly through in what would be a tense finale to race 2 here in Barcelona. Pavlic did get to work though, pushing hard before this near pass at turn 1. It was Xabi Zurutuza who was able to make it work that time around though. That was for 3rd place, slotting himself ahead of the number 4. Eric Fernandez' charge wasn't done quite yet though, as he would soon fight his way back towards the podium places. Unai Aradri had a consistent pace as well at 49. Francesco had a quick penalty to serve. Through the long lap loop he went, and he would soon rejoin. Now though, into turn 4, is stuck in line. Then we entered the final stages of race 2. Eric Fernandez did look for a move at turn 1, showing his front wheel, getting briefly ahead of the 44, who would look to return the favour, passing at turn 10. That was unsuccessful, so Pavlic tried again, this time around returning the favour and launching his attack in the lead. It was P1 now for Milan Pavlic as a final corner move yet again occurred between Eric Fernandez and Alberto Ferrandis. It was Pavlic who took victory from the number 4 and the 54s. Unai Aradri took P6. The championship heads to Valencia.
Mascari
On to the podium, we are yet again. This being Moto2 European Championships final appearance of the day. They've had 2 races here today, and both of them, Alberto Ferrandis has finished 3rd. I'm sure right now he'll be disappointed, but looking back, it was an incredible race. 2nd place and a handshake, great to see between the 2 of them. Eric Ferrandis in 2nd. Milan Pavelet now on to the podium, a handshake all around for the AGR team. There's a lot of people to thank, made this dream possible. As Vice President of the FIM Europe hands out the team trophy first of all. Celebrating with the team himself before, of course. Now, 3rd place trophy goes the way of Alberto Ferrandis. And then, of course, 2 more, 2nd and 3rd. First, of course, comes 2nd place trophy for Eric Ferrandis, the 2nd of the day. Of course, Eric started from pole position. He wasn't able to convert it to victory this time around, and that's thanks to Milan Pavelet, as even Ortola hands out the P1 trophy. And I'm sure he would love to join Ortola on a Moto2 grid full-time very, very soon. But nonetheless, we now get to hear the national anthem of Poland.
Escuchamos. ¡Ole! ¡Gracias! ¡Team Polska! Ahí están los polacos como cantaban. ¡Qué bonito! Vamos a ver.
Perfect opening of second bottle there. And well, I think Milan Pavelet is going to be hoping that's not the last time he has to do that this season. He heads into the final round, chance to become the 2025 champion. What a ride it was for him, and what an exciting round we have coming up in a few weeks' time. Milan Pavelet is your race winner, 0.8 of a second ahead of Eric Ferrandis, who pipped Alberto Ferrandis once again. Xavi Zuratuza and Xavi Artigas rounds out our top 5, with Unai Radri and Alberto Sura rounding out the top 7. Joan Gimbert and Oscar Gutierrez rounds out the top 9, with Borja Jimenez in P10. Alessandro Morozio in P11. He did drop back after his good qualifying with Yari Ruiz and Palomera starting finishing P12 and P13. Dardo and Dena rounds out our point scores, with Harrison Voigt just missing out this time around. Roman Ramos, another top 20 finish for him. Just a few places ahead of Christian Lawley. Owen Van Trick did make it to the finish line this time around, after, of course, crashing out of race 1. We did have a few falls, of Curse Van Fallen at turn 5, Mario Mayor at turn 10, and Kim sadly didn't make the start following a technical in race 1. One race, 25 points left in 2025. Unai Radri continues to lead the championship, but his championship lead has shrank to just 10 points over Milan Pavelet. Alberto Ferrandis does sit in 3rd after 2 P3 finishes in Barcelona, with Alberto Sura dropping back down to P4 in the standings. He entered this weekend P2, so he's got a lot of work to do in Valencia in just a few weeks' time. It's set to be fireworks in Valencia. what a final round we have in store. Can Unai Radre hold on to things in Valencia? Well, we're not going to wait too much longer to find out. What an incredible weekend of action it's been for the Moto2 European Championship. And well, I think now we all cannot wait until Valencia, until the grand finale in just a few weeks. But here is the start. Enjoy a few shots of your race, whether Milan Pavelich is the Moto2 European Championship Race 2 victor.